Divestor comes back to FBA after getting divorced from her white man of 15 years. She also brings her biracial children along on her journey back to black men. This woman is delusional. Her kids are not black, and she acts like she is doing people a favor by turning pro-black after her old ass got divorced. But listen to the babble.
Hey, I did a thing. I wrote an article and it got published in my friend's online magazine. I went ahead and marinated a little bit on the discourse that was happening around the Super Bowl halftime show, and also just like all of the different places in my life that it was coming up, both online and in the real world, and different people's, specifically black people's take on it. And just kind of realizing that we all have got to get on the same page. There's some really interesting things happening online, but we have got to merge it with the real world so that we're all speaking the same language.
Notice how the divestor now expects black people to get on the same page as her. What a joke.
Facts about being in an interracial relationship or marriage that nobody is going to tell you but me. So listen up. Your white partner is going to experience a decline in their white privilege, and it is going to cause a crash out like you have never seen. And here's the thing, they don't even tell the white people this. They get blindsided by it too. And the way that it works is wild. Speaking from my experience and how it went, you meet a guy, and on either side, it can be fetish, lust, like, love, whatever. Then they take you around their white friends. And now, black women, what you need to know is a group of not racist white men, especially young white men, are always going to be cool. They're always going to think you're hot, you're cool, be totally down with however you're representing yourself and whatever. Because white men in their white privilege have the freedom to think however they want to think. It's when the company gets mixed that things start to get hinky. And by mixed company, I mean those same white guys plus their white girlfriends and wives, white family, white coworkers, white friends. Then the dance starts because you have people who are on different levels of privilege, class, and power. And they're looking at you and they're trying to place you, and it better not be above them. So now you, as the black girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or whatever, wife, have to do a dance. You have to position yourself between stereotype of what everybody wants you to be so that they can be comfortable in their white superiority delusion of this is what a black person is and that's what I need to see to know that I'm here. But you also have to be assimilated enough into white culture that you're not deemed a threat, that they can relate to you, they understand you, they see that you are parroting certain norms and things that they know that they can relax a little bit. So it's a constant dance, because do not walk into a room full of insecure white people and be all that in a bag of chips. Oh, you in danger, girl. Because if you walk in there and you're not playing their little game that makes them feel good about themselves, if you walk in there and you are intellectual, you have poise, class, a great job, you're well educated, style, if you're not afraid of them, if you're not seeking their approval, if you are unbothered, they are not gonna like that. And they're gonna start looking at your white partner like, how dare you bring that here? And in order to keep their community of white delusion thriving, they have to remove any perceived threats, actual threats, anything that is not vibing in that collective understanding of who they deem themselves to be. And so that decline, that dismissal from white privilege is going to hit your white partner hard. They are going to get social backlash, stop being invited to things. Their family is going to start haranguing them about keeping you in line. Their buddies are not going to come over because their wives don't like you. There's going to be a lot of things that happen. And not only will they possibly have a decline in their social status, their white privilege, but their upward mobility within white privilege can be chopped off, especially if it's at work. If they have a boss or a boss's spouse that feels some kind of way, all of a sudden promotion opportunities are not there for them. You are literally by showing up as your authentic self, by being real, by not taking any flack, or even if you are so token and so playing the game, but that other white person who has a little bit more power than your partner is threatened or is insecure, there's nothing that you can do to stop them from wanting to yank privilege away from your partner or your spouse. It is what it is. And something that I was shocked by was that there will be other interracial relationships around, other black men, Negro women, and they're not gonna help you. They are not your friend. They ain't looking out for you, because if they stand up for you, if they speak up, if they try to mirror you, hell, if they even be nice to you or acknowledge your presence before anything else pops off, that could be seen as a threat, because you have to remember they're doing the same dance, right? They're also having to toggle between stereotype and non-threatening assimilated token. So they are having to consciously or subconsciously protect the white privilege of their spouse and the standing of their spouse for their own self-preservation. So no, don't look to them. They ain't going to help you. And y'all ain't going to be friends. Y'all ain't going to be bonding about the nuances of being in an interracial relationship. That's not how this works. This is about isolation. So if you find yourself with a white person who you might like, love, see yourself building a life with, and they have not completely deconstructed from white supremacy, delusion, from their need to have access to white power, from capitalism, from sexism, from, I'm trying to think of what else, from any of these societal powers, and they have not deconstructed from that truly intentionally to the point where they've already cut out problematic friends and family, and they are no longer trying to navigate that world. If they haven't done all of that work, that shit will be done for them by the nature of them being with you, and your white partner will punish you for removing them from access to their white power. That's the dirty little secret that nobody talks about. When you are with an unhealed, unawakened white person who is just moving through life and thinks that their privilege is enough to allow them to date and do whatever they want and not be seen as a threat within their own society, if they have not done that soul-searching work, they will drag you into the messiness that is white supremacy. They will get taken out by their own, and you will become the one that they get to punish for it. So I'm not saying nothing. Date who you want to date, do what you want to do, but I thought you should know. There's a Black female creator on here who I love, talking about how she's tired of seeing the propaganda promoting interracial relationships in the media and commercials and stuff. So I thought I'd hop on here and give you guys my 2 cents as someone who got by the propaganda and who's currently disentangling myself from a 15-year relationship with a white guy. All of the stuff in the media, the commercials and everything that you're seeing promoting interracial families is actually not trying to get young Black men and Black women into interracial relationships. It's trying to keep us oldies from divorcing our spouses. And the reason I know this is because it worked on me for the last 5-6 years. That's what it's doing. It's there to basically make sure that when we're having moments of doubt, issues in the marriage, when we're not seeing ourselves reflected in our communities, because even though interracial marriage has been on the rise, a lot of times it's very isolating for the person of color. They want to make sure it's being reinforced in certain places so we can feel like anything that is not comfortable or not feeling normal or good is an us problem and not a systemic, bigger issue in the marriage or in the coupling in the first place. Make sense? And if you're not in this world of interracial marriage where you've been together for a while, you've got kids, you don't even know the levels of psyop that they got going. Have you ever heard of this show? It's on Apple Plus. It's a cute show that I've been watching with my kids, but let me tell you the plot. Okay, so this Black archaeologist woman, museum curator, marries a white guy, and they have 2 kids. He's from a really wealthy family of like art collectors and artifact collectors, and it turns out they're evil, and his ancestors have been stealing artifacts from indigenous cultures all over the world, and they're all cursed, and he gets like turned into stone, and his Black wife and biracial children have to run around the literal world undoing the karmic debt that his family has acquired in order to free him from his spell. That's the plot of the show. And they're doing a lot of good stuff talking about these themes of how it's bad to steal from indigenous cultures, and a lack mindset has caused certain structural powers to hoard, right? There's some good things in there. But at the end of the day, the show is about a Black woman who got to go clean up the mess for her white in-laws. And y'all, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many of these things that I watch with my kids, or that like we've been pulled into, or that have been in our realm because of what our family looks like and what is being pushed to you, you know, and what you are attracting, right? Because of your subconscious mind. But like, this is on Apple TV. You can go watch this right now. It's a good show. The second season was good. And then in the second season, so they fixed everything. But then in the second season, oops, turns out dad is still possessed by a demon, and he's out here doing even more mischief because it's his ancestors, like literally possessing him and continuing to hoard shit and like try and like do evil stuff. It's just like, so yeah, a lot of the stuff that I think people are seeing is really aimed at folks that are in marriages to make us feel normal and to make us not question as much wanting to leave, wanting to make changes, wanting to disentangle from whiteness, from capitalism, from whatever it is that is an undercurrent in that relationship. If you want to know how they're trying to get new Black people into interracial relationships, check this out. And I mean, announcing that they're engaged while she's dressed like Dorothy Dandridge. Now, this is one, I like them, they're cute. And 2 things can be happening at once, right? 2 young people can be living their lives and in love and like minding their business, doing what they're doing. And their story can be used as a narrative by empire, can be used as a narrative by an oppressive state, right? Two things can be happening at once. I am not making a comment on whether or not they're really together, right? I'm just saying this was a carefully constructed artistic image to make people feel a certain thing. That's all I'm saying. They're cute together though, but just think. Sometimes it feels like the spiritual consciousness community forgets that some of us have kids, young children. Something that's been playing in the back of my mind is that clip where Bobby Hemmett is talking about how family can be a big roadblock in your journey of consciousness, and sometimes you have to let them go. And he's like, even if it's your kids, just let them go. And I'm assuming he's talking about, grown children, like your 40-year-old son that, is a hot mess or whatever, that's, keeping you down. Because he can't be talking about my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old. I cannot let them go. I can't be like, oh, you guys aren't woke by, because the reason they're not woke is me, right? So I'm on this journey, and I'm trying to navigate teaching them, right? And I wish I could go back in time and be more conscious prior to having children, prior to putting them in a public education, or at least make sure my partner and I are on the same page so that we're not like doing this ideological tug of war in our parenting. So my parents were really comfortable navigating between these two worlds. And when they had me and were raising me out in the middle of nowhere, America, I think they took for granted that the self-esteem and the love and the knowing of who we are as people that I was experiencing in my house, I think that they didn't understand how aggressive the dismantling of that was the second I left our house. So the number one thing I think parents can do for their children is try not to raise them in predominantly white spaces. That is what I do. I have worked very hard to make sure my kids are at predominantly Black schools because of my experiences, and to offset the fact that just by the nature of who their parents are, it's not as Black of a foundational family experience. The other thing is to give your kids as many Black experiences and Black spaces and places to go as possible. So that's Black churches, there's pros and cons, whatever, but I'm talking about Black spaces, Black clubs, making sure that if you're looking for an art school or a dance school or these sort of enrichment things outside of, the white neighborhood that you lived in, look for Black ones, so that they get to know other Black kids, because it's just the little things like having interactions with friends that get that you're going to wrap your hair, you're going to put on lotion, that your parents are going to feel some kind of way about certain phrases and things, that those cultural touch points that turn into big bullying moments when you are the only. And also just the opportunity to crush on and be crushed on by people who are not fetishizing you because they are of your community. That's a big one, because if the only people that ever liked you were like really creepy about it, and then all of a sudden you're like in your 20s. But I think the biggest thing, because kids are kids and they only know what they know. And, I never encountered very much like overt racism from the kids I went to school with, and definitely not from my friends, but you cannot account for their parents, their siblings, the people in their community, teachers, coaches, and just a myriad of other things that are going on that could be dismantling the strong pro-Black self-esteem foundation that you're trying so desperately to instill in your child at home that you don't know. So we've got to be super, super blunt with kids about what they're going to be encountering and what it looks like and what it means and how it is not about them. Because I know this for a fact. To this day, there are a lot of parents who don't want to call racism racism. They don't want to say that person sucks, is insecure, because you think that you're going to give your kid a big head, or that they're going to have some sort of like world altering view or not be able to thrive and survive in these spaces. But as parents, we have to understand that you have to tell your kids the truth. You have to be real with them about what they're going to be encountering. That person is triggered by you because of XYZ, and it has nothing to do with you. And this is why. And this is the historic context around it. This is where that person is coming from and why they are ludicrous. You have to tell these things to your kids, because otherwise they're getting BS narcissistic nonsense from abusers. And that's the truth that they are taking with them into adulthood. Facts. So one of the reasons why I am so blunt and open on my page about these things is because it's the quiet part out loud. Nobody wants to be the one that comes out here and says, hey, whiteness is really fucked up. And there are a lot of well-meaning white people who are just not having conversations with their kids about anything, especially not race, sending their children out just to microaggress all over everybody, or they themselves haven't resolved some stuff. And so they want to be the cool mom and embrace you and your family. Meanwhile, they are dismantling your child's self-esteem because they haven't dealt with their stuff. You have to give your kids the tools to come up against that, because you're not always going to see it coming, and you're not always going to bear witness to it. And so I think those were the things that were the biggest for me. So just knowing who you are and having those foundational Black experiences, Negro experiences, whatever that is for your family, your culture, that you can be like, I'm hearing this person say things about me. I'm seeing how people are moving when I walk into a room or after I'm my authentic self. But I know, due to my foundation of who I am and who my people are, that this is their stuff and it has nothing to do with me. It took me a long time to get to where I understood that and was able to navigate the world secure in myself. Because growing up, the only narrative I heard was from my oppressors, from people who were being jerks to me, and I was a child. Get what I'm saying? So we got to do better of equipping our children with these tough conversations. The talk can't just be, if you get pulled over by the police, cooperate. It's much more nuanced than that, y'all. It's much more nuanced than that. There's other ways that they're coming at us, and we have to be smart about it and set our kids up for success. Because as long as they know what they're walking into, they're gonna be fine. But the issue is, we don't tell them. Tiffany, thanks so much for all your comments. You're awesome. But I just wanted to add a little extra something. Go back and check this out for more context. But yeah, I mean, 15 years ago, when I was getting in a relationship with my now ex-husband, there was no, who we were going to talk to about what to expect. We did marriage counseling and all this stuff. We had been together for 5 years before we got married, dating. Nobody mentions anything. They're afraid to. Like your friends, your family don't want to be seen as racist, so they don't say anything. And even now, Google narratives on interracial relationships and try and find a negative one. So I'm out here sharing my story just so that maybe people know to talk about a couple extra topics when they're doing premarital counseling, or to ask a couple more questions when they're on those initial dates, or, to think a little bit more about what they want from their marriage.
This was long, but if you paid attention, you will notice how she is trying to mix pro-blackness with not all white people are bad, and trying to mix pro-blackness with white men think black women are hot, but their community won't allow them to be who they are. Do you see the delusions? Black women think they are white men's natural preference, but it's racism that's stopping white men from liking them. Please notice how she also is trying to get black children to make her biracial children feel comfortable, and trying to get black children to protect her biracial children's self-esteem. That's ridiculous. If white men found black women hot, then they wouldn't lose their white privilege just because they married you. That's a contradiction. They don't find you hot, which is why white men who marry black women are viewed as bottom shelf brads. Last, I did notice that many FBA women are washed up divestors over 40 with nowhere to go. How in the hell can anyone ally with these women? They are snakes. Divestor to FBA pipeline.